Okay, I just want to thank everybody for coming tonight. My name is Vanessa Price. If I haven't met each and every one of you yet, I'm the town planner for Barrington. Tonight we're here to talk about the two land use chapters that we're looking to update. This is our transportation plan and our land use. And I appreciate everyone's time and volunteering to be part of this board. Whether you're part of one of our boards already or as a citizen involvement, it's really valuable to have everybody have input. So thank you for your time. And our consultants here today are the Hampshire Regional Planning Council. They are going to start us off with our kickoff meeting. And then we can, if you have any questions, please ask and we'll go from there. Thank you. Over to you.
All right. Thanks, Vanessa. We appreciate it. Hi, everyone. My name is Blair. With me is Colin. As Vanessa mentioned, we're with the Stratford Regional Planning Commission, SRPC. So I'm going to turn this into a PowerPoint presentation. There we go. All right. So yeah, we're going to be talking about the town of Stratford master plan chapter updates. At the moment, we're going to see it in that format. Figure it out. Otherwise, see it. Basically, slide.
It's showing full screen on this computer here. I'm not sure why it's not working up there.
Oh, it's
Sometimes it's slow to connect.
Okay. We'll see if it advances.
great. So he'll see what he can do to pull that up, but for the moment, I just want to move us along. Right. So for this, for the slide here, what we're going to be talking about is what is the process for updating the master plan? What's the purpose of a master plan? And then the last one, basically talking about future meetings and community outreach. So basically, what's the project? And those are the three items we're going to go over tonight. I'll handle the first two, and then Colin will jump in and grab the last part of it. So in terms of process, that's what I'm going to talk about is who's involved. And if there we go, great, thank you. As mentioned, we're SRPC. We are one of the 9 regional planning commissions throughout the state. The state's 234 cities and towns are divided up among these 9 RPCs, and if your community falls in one, you can seek services from that regional planning commission. We provide technical assistance to those cities and towns, and SRPC has 18 communities, including Barrington. It's advisory only. Nothing we do is regulatory. We don't make any policies. We do not issue any permits. It's just simply there as a service to you. Like a lot of communities don't have a planner, or maybe have only a part-time planner, right? And sometimes we can augment that service. So in terms of this project, the who is going to be SRPC consulting with the community of Barrington. The planning board has to vote on the project and adopt the any master plan chapters. And for this particular project, the planning board has decided to form a steering committee, which is essentially this group here, if not entirely this group here. So that's who's going to be involved in the project. Of course, everything we do is in view in plain sight of the public. The public is invited to all the meetings that we have. They are public meetings. The chair and the committee can decide if it's a public hearing, that is to say, take testimony, take comment from the public. That'll be a decision to be made, but they're always invited. They're always welcome. And ultimately, that's who we're responsible to, right? This is a community project, and it's going to be something that lives in this community for a number of years to come. So we absolutely want to get everybody's feelings, everyone's thoughts on that. So when we move on to the next slide, we have, there? Yeah, great. So this is sort of the what of a master plan. As you can say, it illustrates land use and development principles. If you look at the legal section 674-2, it says to aid the planning board in designing ordinances for smart growth, sound planning, and wise resource protection. It's a paraphrase, but that's really what a master plan does. It's not a legal document, it's a guiding document. As we said, the public process, it's a public process. Residents and stakeholders are going to be here to provide their input and their feedback. The primary goal is to identify actions that the town can take, things that are implementable. We don't want it to be a static document that just sits on a shelf somewhere. Sometimes communities will have an implementation committee after you develop your planning document to actually focus on moving balls forward on different projects. But for the most part, you want to develop actions that are achievable. Some are more long-term, some are more low-hanging fruit. But all in all, that's essentially what a master plan should end up doing. The state does require 2 sections of a master plan. You're required to have a land use section. You're required to have a visioning section. This community did their visioning section back in 2017. You most recently did, at least what I was able to see, is your community facilities and utilities sections in 2018. Back in 2016, I believe the planning board made the decision to have the community do one chapter at a time rather than a whole master plan at one time. The master plan can be many chapters. Transportation, economic development, natural resources, recreation, it can be all those things. But the 2 that are required are visioning and land use. So the reason, sort of the why for doing this is that the adoption of a master plan, as it says right here, is a prerequisite to all land use regulations. You cannot have, in New Hampshire, you cannot have a zoning ordinance or subdivision regulations without master plan. And at a minimum, the master plan must be the visioning and the land use sections. You can have additional that can all sort of feed into those 2, but everything stems from those 2. And that's essentially the why. It allows you to shape growth within your community, protect your resources, and essentially have a long-range outlook on how you want your community to grow. Sometimes when I have friends that ask me, like, what do you do as a planner? What does that look like? Well, a lot of times, like, the snarky way of describing it is predicting the future, right? You have to sort of go into the future 5, 10, 15 years and say, well, what do you want to look like? Where do you want to be? And then you have to come back to present day and develop the regulations that get you towards that. And that's essentially what we're trying to do, right? So a visioning section, a land use chapter, try to go out into the future, look at trends that are happening now, but also look at where you want to be, what you desire, and then come back to present day and start developing the regulations that would get you there. So that's, in a nutshell, why we do this. The master plan becomes the legal basis for zoning regulations and other land use regulations, as it was stated in one of New Hampshire's explanation documents. So as I said, you've already done the visioning chapter. One of the things we're going to do here is the land use chapter, but we're also going to do a transportation chapter. From that, the town can decide if it wants to make changes to a zoning ordinance or if it wants to implement certain projects to get you towards those goals. But that is essentially the reason why we're doing this. I'm going to turn it over to Colin, and he's going to handle some of the project elements moving forward.
Sure. And sorry, we're struggling with a strange machine here. Now this is tiny. We'll send this out if folks haven't seen it afterward. Just as a way of a quick introduction, again, my name is Colin West. I work at Stratford Regional Planning Commission as a transportation planner, and I'm more on the long-term planning side of things. One of the acronyms you saw, Metropolitan Planning Organization. So SRPC is also an MPO. The one thing we're not associated with is the county of Stratford, which confuses people. But just so you know, we're not county. Just the way the name confuses everyone. So I'm involved in, as Blair was thinking, looking into the future at what is going to be needed as far as transportation at the regional level. But I think that'll translate well to the local planning. So in my day-to-day, most recently for Barrington, was involved with the planning of the sidewalks across 125 on Route 9 to connect your schools to the town center intersection, as well as some what are called road safety audits to look at problem intersections that have had some bad crashes. So I think we're looking for here is more that how is the 125 corridor going to be changing, in the next 5, 10, 20, 25 years. So looking ahead at the schedule, I think everyone has seen this or it's been sent out, Vanessa, unless I'm incorrect. But we have some schedule for each. The words are tiny, so this little Gantt chart is for the future land use chapter, and where we can have some shared or separate meetings for the different chapters moving ahead. But the first thing you see in the July, August, September into the fall is the outreach component. And then from that, we get an idea of any updates to the vision related to land use and transportation. It's up for philosophical debate whether transportation impacts or informs developments or the other way around. It's a chicken and egg thing. But we want to make sure the community's thoughts on the future in both of those is incorporated here. And then we move into chapter writing and kind of workshopping those with you all on an individual, on a group basis. And then moving into adoption about a year from now. So it's probably going to seem like it goes pretty fast. Transportation follows generally the same path, and both will be incorporated in together. One thing we can bring to bear is some new technological tools to update some of the data in the master plan chapter that's there. We can look at congestion along 125, for instance, look at crash histories. We have a very talented geospatial analyst who can do maps and even put together some interactive maps. We also have some more interactive survey tools for the survey that's in the schedule. And one thing we are very experienced with is the kind of community visioning exercise. We've done a lot of those. So I'll leave it at that in the interest of time. I think so. This is just on that Gantt chart, the different meetings kind of lays out what the general purpose of each of those group meetings is going to be. So you can use that as your cheat sheet. And so we were just figuring the most likely thing to workshop tonight was any questions or thoughts you had on the outreach and kind of setting us on the head. So just starting off before we get into that, are there any questions on kind of that real quick introduction? Tried to eliminate most of the acronyms.
Back to the land use chart.
The schedule.
Schedule.
Yep.
Trying to goal setting very late in the process. Like, having trouble.
Yeah.
with all that.
So
Yeah.
I think it looks like you all, or the goal was to host the workshop and do all the outreach before the holidays. And so I think the goal setting, it looks like it starts right after that workshop in early November. So I don't think I'm out of line in saying the goal setting and stuff can start immediately after we get the results from the outreach, from the survey and the workshop. Because we don't want to start any of that until we get the full picture.
So your process with the survey, is the content of that survey something we review and participate in, or is that something
Yes.
you guys do?
We would kind of crunch all those numbers and make it into something useful and readable for you all. But then, yeah, all the data, anything we generate in this process will be shared in a raw format as well as the kind of.
Describe the survey process you're going to go through.
Sure. I brought, while I'm talking, I'm going to try to bring up the, I asked our folks who specialize in the outreach field for a kind of menu that I can follow up to make sure I didn't miss anything. But we have a few tools. We use SurveyMonkey fairly often. It provides really good data at the back end. It's pretty customizable. Another tool we've used very successfully is called Survey 123. And the benefit of that one, it has a mapping component. So as part of a survey under Survey 123, the survey itself could be a map. And you ask people, where's your favorite spot to recreate in Barrington? Or where is a spot where you've had a near miss trying to pull out of your driveway or get to your school or something like that. So we can make it a little more visual rather than just clicking through radio buttons in a survey.
Do those survey tools show the statistics of the number of people who brought that point up?
Definitely.
Are they integrated or is it separate surveys?
That I will have to ask. We could have, I believe we could have a link to the mapping component through Survey 123 in SurveyMonkey, but I'll have to make sure, and I can get you guys a full layout of what the full range of options are. But those are kind of the things that are ready to go, and we've used those all the time. Know them pretty well.
Now, in looking at the survey, the outreach, the visioning chapter and goals that are in the prior chapters may or may not be relevant and pertinent to the population today. So are those going to be part of the survey to say, do you feel that this is still a valid goal, or is it something that's out of our reach or no longer feasible for Barrington situation?
That's entirely up to you, and I think that would be a valuable thing to ask everyone if there's specific components in there. I was looking through the visioning paragraphs in here and thought there were some spots that are worth asking people about. So those, you definitely, the answer is yes, we can put those.
So, okay, where in the process then do we get involved with inputting what we think need to be part of that survey, or would like to have?
Today?
Yeah,
Yeah.
it could be as early as today, or workshopping at the first kind of nitty-gritty meeting. You can do it however you want. We can come up with some questions. If you give us nice ideas of what kinds of questions you'd like to ask, we can kind of wordsmith them the next meeting and beyond.
You have a sort of a standard template you use that committees update as they feel customized to the town, or are we sort of starting anew?
I think in between. I don't know that we have a template necessarily that's entirely plug and play, but we have past surveys that the kind of layout of them will be adaptable, and all we have to do is edit the questions and phrases or replace the word strappers with barrels.
So my question is about who completes the survey. that something we'll discuss tonight?
Yeah.
We send that out to everyone in town, have the mechanisms for that.
So that was something I was definitely hoping to talk about tonight, how you all thought the best way to distribute a survey would be, because we have the online tools and they are printable. So if there are folks and if there are places where it's more appropriate to leave a printed version at the town hall or Taylor's or whatever, we can do both. But we have, there's the town website or Facebook page to distribute that. And I don't know if there are emails that go home to parents of school kids. That may be a way to get a really important audience. Thinking about 10, 15, 25 years in the future, how many of those kids at the school now are hoping to buy homes in the future. So definitely want to talk about how, best thoughts for distribution.
Right, because it seems like a broad-based sampling.
Yes, definitely, yeah.
If I may, as town staff, I can help facilitate that. Which we do have a complete survey. Like I mentioned, we can put this on our Facebook page as well as like our main page and our planning page. Could also post it at our town offices or have like handwritten surveys that could be available at like the tax collector's office, the library. Other
Can you
names of that
send
nature.
directly out to say all taxpayers? Or something like that, because not everyone
Yeah, right.
moves in town,
Right,
not
right.
everyone is on social media, but everyone who pays taxes, I'm assuming, property of some sort.
I'd have to ask our office how the best way to do that. I know they do mailers every
Every
so
tax bill,
often. Yes.
Every 6 months, they get.
So,
a
I mean,
tax
you're gonna
bill,
miss
so-
it because it was just had one, I know just one that just came out. That's something I can discuss that.
Yeah, I'm just.
I'm not sure if like the,
It would be great if we
legality
could
of it, I
get as
don't know.
many responses as
Flyers or that
possible,
sort of thing,
as much representation.
I've never experienced a direct email blast to every citizen in
I don't
any
think you have email
type.
for everyone, do you?
I'm not the record keeper, so I don't want to answer.
Not
that.
everyone has
Right,
email.
so
Not everybody
yeah,
has email.
I don't know. But like a butter notification, I don't know if I've experienced one so broad.
I can definitely look into those. I know I'm definitely open to suggestions or, like, places that, if there's community groups that, each belong to, it doesn't hurt to, if you do have email addresses or you do attend other places of
Well,
business, because this is to get the community as a whole, the town of
Right.
Barrington. So however we can share the information, I think would be.
I mean, as this says.
Because it all will go back, the regional for the data collection. That'll probably be part of, we do have paper copies, which I think are valuable to have. Like I could collect them, but I'll have to like figure out how to collect them per se to meet a deadline. So
Yeah.
something I can definitely-
How do you input the paper versions?
We just set it up so that it can be printed and it'd be up to all to decide where the best place is in town.
Right, yeah, I get that, but how do you input them back into your data, your numbers?
That, it would just be manual.
There's someone on your end that does that?
Yeah, I think as Vanessa was alluding to, it's like, we have a lot of templated traditional ways of reaching people, but there's little groups within your larger Barrington group that if you know of, there's ways to reach them. Oh, this group's active, or this group would be interested. If you have a way to get to them, whether it's through an email distribution, whether it's through, well, if you get it to this person, he or she will get it to the group, something like that. So those are the things that, the little nuances of your community that we don't know, but we would benefit from. And it would simply be a link. We wouldn't be sending them the full survey, right? It would just be like, go here, click on this link, put your information in, and then complete the survey. So it's not like you have to walk around handing out surveys or anything.
Fortunately, association, so sports. Just to vote on that. Aside from, not everybody's on Facebook. Seniors of my age would not be used to that.
Sure.
Library is excellent. Source for something. Oh, well, but it's got to be something else. Mailer. You know, it has to be money in the budget. It's fiscal. It's a separate mailer. That's very true.
You have to give me numbers.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Yeah, and historically, there has
Keep on in the-
budget for master plans type stuff. I don't know currently, but
It was in the past, 2016.
Yeah, for this master plan, it was, select board last budget year. For a set table plan for this year. There's a little bit money left, but, the planning department also has. I guess is the best way to say it, I can look into. That as part of. Try to go out for, can or able to go out for a large.
One option is, it's not the best option, but it's a more affordable option, is just to mail a postcard to tell people about it, that this is happening. And if you want a digital copy, go to this website address. If you want a hard copy, go to town,
Absolutely.
right? It's a little bit less expensive because postcards are like a fraction of the cost for a stamp. So that's one thing. The other thing is, we've thought about the schools. It is a great way to reach parents, right? And we don't plan to launch the survey until October or November anyways. We're going to be spending the next couple months working together, getting to know each other and developing the survey, developing these outreach methods. There's also going to be a community workshop where we're going to try and get everybody in a room like this and get them at individual tables and do, markers and maps on a table, right? So we've got a bunch of different ways that we want to reach people in different ways to reach people and doing different things. A survey gets you certain results. Markers on a table and a group exercise gets you other results, right? So we've got a bunch of different things that all of us together are going to have to work on getting into the details of, and those things won't be ready until, like I said, early fall, and that's when we plan to do that. So we should be able to reach. The end game is to have the results of all these things by the end of the calendar year.
Then when do we synthesize it and put it into some sort of action plan and conclusion?
So as with basically any planning document, I'll get to your answer, but like with any planning document, your first steps is to do your existing conditions, right? What are people thinking? What do you have? What are your resources? How much land in your community is forested? How much is commercial, residential? All those existing conditions. What are town people thinking? Get that survey. What are they visioning? Doing the workshop. And goal is to get all of that sort of data, whether it's, concrete data like statistics, numbers and data, or whether it's like anecdotal data, right? Quantitative versus qualitative data, get that all together. And then we start doing that analysis. So if you figure we're going to have it all in our hands by the end of the calendar year, you figure sometime at the beginning of the new year is when we're going to start to process that. Now it'll start with us, right? We're going to assemble it, right? And then present it to you and show it to you. And then we'll start to make sense of it together. We might give you sort of some high level takes on what we saw, some trends that we saw, some places where things stood out. But ultimately, it'll be up to you to decide, what kind of story you want to tell from that data. That's the analysis piece. What's the story, right? Because you can highlight anything. You could highlight stuff that's maybe irrelevant, but you could highlight stuff that's really important. And that's, you know, what you want to do. So let's figure.
So according to this schedule, the future land use had the meeting you're describing in January, and then the transportation specific one in February. Those are going to have to be a little flexible depending on our schedule, but that will also be preceded by some of the objective plug and play data, you know, updating what's in the current chapter with traffic volumes, crash data, all that kind of stuff, so that you can take the kind of qualitative outreach as well as that quantitative, start to build, okay, what do we want to do? How to marry the vision that we all have for, you know, the 125 corridor or the Route 9 corridor, the reality that staring us in the face.
And it gets a little bit to the question statement you had made earlier. It's, I think you said something effective. It looks like the goal setting is kind of late in the process. And that's sort of why. You need to collect all that data. You need to get some of this, you know, the quantitative, the qualitative data, and you need to synthesize it, do some analysis. But ultimately what you're going to do is try to distill it down to a handful of land use goals and a handful of transportation goals. I mean, you could create 100 goals, but you really want to get it down to meat and potatoes, the really important ones, and the achievable ones too, right? You know, people could come up with, well, I want a Barrington in the future that has no property taxes, right? That might be difficult to reach, not impossible, but you know, you have to get down to goals that are really, that are achievable. And that's why you want to get some information in front of you before you start setting those goals. And you want to hear from people too. I mean, we don't want to do this in a silo. We want to do it with the input of others. And these are the different ways to get that, right? Through the survey, through the workshop.
And sorry, I think, Steve, what you may be getting, tell me if I'm taking words out of my mouth, because I think you and I are thinking the same way, is that there's the goals that come out of the exercise, but there's also goals that have to come into the exercise. I almost would call it themes, right? What are the broad areas that we want to start asking about, right? What and how do we start to dive into those sections? I don't know if we've ever, do we have those types of themes? Does it come out of the vision document or where?
Together. Master plan vision.
Yeah.
The latest one that was done, the vision for Barrington that was done in 2004. And those are the two documents that feed everything else. And since vision, a team really doesn't correct. Right. 2004. Somehow we have to be able to look at each of those and determine, is it still some of the things that have happened demographic wise and just transportation wise, education wise, various things that we have in our community are changed significantly. 2004 and even 2007. Campus for town hall and library and everybody else in community center is kaput. It hasn't been realized. It cannot be realized in the next 10 years. So that's something that has to be re-examined somehow. I don't know if that's to do it because we're very fractionated. Look at what's happened. The library proposals that have been shot down several times. And still, people absolutely think that's the best thing to do, and some people say, wait a minute. So it's a very fractionated town. I'm not sure the surveys are going to help us work through that. I think we need more.
He makes a great point, and I'll speak to that as being part of 2 of the chapters, 2017, is that typically the people that you get to participate in this effort are not the same representation when it comes to voting. And like you said, it's very fractured and diametrically opposed opinions. The people that tend to participate in this aspect have one vision for the town. And then when it comes to dollars and cents and land use, it's a completely different group of people that show up to vote. So it's a struggle, but it's you know, I think the people that volunteer and the community that shows up are the ones that, you know, steer this in the vision that we all see. And we may all disagree or agree on certain parts, but when it comes down to voting, there tends to be a lot of frustration on both sides. And yeah, I think it's, you know, the great part of democracy and also the frustration.
And so that, I'd be interested to talk about tonight, your thoughts on how to really get both groups of people, a representative group of people in, especially a visioning session, to, you can get input from individuals through a survey, but getting everyone in the same room to think about the challenges that everyone faces and says, yes, I would love to have a new library, but we need X, Y, and Z as well. So how do we do that? So just as one example of a visioning session we've done in the past, we literally have a map at each table. One is focused on transportation, one is focused on, or not even just transportation, but could be transportation. One is recreation and conservation, you know, different tables in each group. I think it's called a World Cafe. So you kind of people take turns at individual tables and highlighting things that they want to see changed or preserved or that sort of thing. So we can sort of tailor the survey and the visioning exercise so that first they're not redundant of each other and then kind of bounce off each other. But yeah, you guys are the local experts as far as the, you know, where we can get in contact with people. Urge them to come to visioning session or provide their input on a survey, down to when we should hold something like a visioning session so that we don't do it on a day when those, you know, the people you want in the room are going to be burnt out and just want to stay home because they're dropping off kids or doing work and all that.
Sorry, a question about the digital surveys. How do you vet whether they're residents or not if they get sent out?
I believe we get data on IP addresses. So it's not specific to an address or anything, just we can track whether it's submitted geographically from within Barrington and maybe down to a census tract or something like that.
They're using VPN.
Well, it's usually, it's also a question.
Yeah.
You know, are you a resident? Are you somebody that travels into Barrington to work?
Yeah.
Are you a business owner who, you know, has a stake in Barrington, but maybe you live outside the community? So there usually is like we ask you a question that ties you to the community or ties you to why are you answering these questions.
I'm just,
But what you're saying is,
we can reach out to, and in that group, there's going to be people that aren't necessarily residents of the town, you know, and if they get caught up in that and they start giving their input, does it skew our data too much?
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's a limit to how much we can determine whether someone's gaining the survey. But that is a good thought that, you know, you have a stakeholder group of people who commute from outside Barrington to work at, you know, TurboCam or other facilities, and they may have input that's valuable for thinking about transportation in the future.
You can't verify it, but is it, I assume it's not anonymous at least. Do people have to put down their name and address or something?
That's up to you guys, whether you want it to be anonymous or not, to have an anonymous option, or whether you just say whether, you know, I am a community member or a resident of Barrington, or I commute from another community to work here, or something else. So we can tailor the amount of.
Found in the other 12 towns that you've done this for.
What was the question?
What have we found in other example surveys? The ones that I'm thinking of offhand are a little more regional, and we just ask what town someone lives in And for the most part, people are up for responding with that as long. We would never ask for someone's mailing address or.
That would lessen the response.
That would kill your response rate, yeah. We make it optional if someone wants to input their email address, if they want to get future updates, or if they want to, there will always be throughout the survey, places for people to type specific comments if they want, but none of that traced back to them.
Now, can you share with us some of the survey's questions that were used in the exercises for land use and transportation?
I'm pretty sure we can. If we develop them, then we can send you guys examples of those. And so the SurveyMonkey ones, we also have access to a program called MetroQuest, which has some components that comes from DOT. We get access to that from state DOT. And it has some other useful, it has a nice layout and everything that's kind of nice to use. So we can provide examples of surveys to these. If you're familiar with promoting outdoor play, project we did fairly recently to map all the recreation good by a region. So that has an online map. There are tons of them in Barrington, like the Winnie the Pooh Trail and things like that. So folks pop up, how strenuous the trail is, bikeable, walkable, friendly, or.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to develop this together, right? We might take a first stab at it to give you something to react to. That tends to be my experience in terms of a situation like this. We come with more experience in doing these things, so that's kind of what you're asking for us. Is to, a lot of times we just give something to react to, and it's a first stab, and then we take notes, we listen to what you're trying to get at, and ultimately, hopefully we develop something that you feel is a good representation of your interests, not ours. But yes, there are plenty of examples out there, and for us, it's like asking the right questions of you to sort of pull out some guidance, go back, hammer something out, bring it back to you, or maybe share it with you. Vanessa and Colin and I will talk about how best to deal with this, but like send it back out to you, get some feedback, right? So it's iterative, but it's communal.
And I wrote down a note for myself. One of the first things I can do is send you all information about each of the survey, the online outreach tools we have, kind of what they're capable of, how they can integrate with each other or not. So you get an idea of whether you want to go with option 1, 2, or 3, or combinations thereof. So we can start with stuff like that and provide some examples.
Okay, so
Sounds good.
as we're saying here, that first bullet point, think about local groups and stakeholders that we can share it with, garden club, book clubs, groups of people that we're not thinking of, and how you might suggest to us to get in touch with them. Because together we'll develop the survey, but then if the challenge becomes getting a lot of responses back, we want to get a good data, we want to get the different groups, right? The different teams that are out there. So think about that. And with the second one, the online survey, the distribution, right? So what are the different ways we're going to get it to them? As the gentleman pointed out, some people might not be on social media or really interested in doing an online survey. Okay, so then how do we get those hard copies to them? How do we get them back to Vanessa so that she can give them to us? Those types of logistics, but the distribution is going to be important. It's two things. It's not just the number of people, but you also want to get a high number of people that are actually going to fill out the whole survey. You'll find you get a lot of people that just get 2/3 of the way through and like, you know what, I'm done. I've had enough. But getting people to get through the survey to make them believe it's important or understand it, that it's important to them, and that results will be beneficial.
Is there a way at the end for town as a whole to say, yes, I believe that this is accurate as a whole sort of exercise, maybe don't agree with every detail, but it would seem like if we at least had somebody, some group of people raising their hand and saying, not just us and the town planner, Joyce and others, we could get some way to get input for people to have in general, some sort of agreement that it looks right. It might be helpful.
Do you mean validation of the planning effort itself?
No, the outcome.
Okay.
A vote of acceptance,
Yeah.
if you will.
Non-binding.
I have
It's sort of-
kind of question getting there too. I mean, the planning board itself, as you described, has to approve and recommend this plan. And that could go to the select board, who have the purse strings for getting it accomplished. And they may be in conflict. A way to involve the select board in the process as well as the planning board. Make sure that we're not going down one path that's going to meet with resistance later.
Is the answer.
So I'm your staff as the steering committee. You have been nominated by the planning board to act as that body. So going through this process, was either determined, do we have the planning board do it? Because this falls underneath the planning board duties, or they can go ahead further or ask for a steering committee. And there was discussion of the benefits steering committee versus planning board, and they thought the steering committee would be better, not better, but maybe a wider avenue to get different points of view than just people that's sitting on the planning board. We do have 2 planning board members. One is not here tonight. We do have a select board member who's representing select board, a conservation commission person as part of that's here for them, and then you have the rest, and then you have the 2 town staff that's been asked to have our, apologize for your title.
Assistant, deputy.
Code enforcer.
Code enforcement.
And as town staff, I'm kind of here to take notes and make sure we stay on track and that sort of thing. And then our consultants are here to help us facilitate to make that document from all the comments that we say here. Now, that being said, everything, as you know, we are being taped. This will be presented online. It's also advertised, so if members of the public are interested, they can attend, but they're not necessarily here to give their input at that time. That's what we're here as the steering committee to make those determinations. I think it would be beneficial. We could always go back to the planning board to tell them, this is what, because I'll give updates at every meeting that we have, that we met with steering committees. This is kind of how we're moving along with our process as like a final plan. When you're saying have it open more, having people comment, we could have one of the subcommittee quote meetings at our planning board, regular scheduled planning board meeting, and at that time, maybe present the plan that way. And if we feel like it needs to go forward for the select board, the planning board is the one that actually adopts it, because it's not adopts.
Select board funds.
Correct.
That's the problem.
You're correct.
we run into everywhere.
You're correct.
It's great for the planning board for us to have vision that says, hey, we want this Taj Mahal.
Yeah.
And the select board says, how are you going to fund it? And they're not going to fund it for the taxpayers because they're elected to keep the taxes in line.
Your
And
question is
wisely
like who's
distribute.
funding the vision that we foresee during this process, or the updates to the transportation plan?
No, I think he's
I'm
saying
sorry.
that you have two different entities.
Right.
One is doing the planning and has all the research and all the comments and all
Right.
the input. They've made a decision. Now they're moving it to someone who's going to pay for it. The people
Right.
who are paying for it say, forget it.
But,
And they weren't a part of any of the process.
but the select board doesn't
Right.
pay for it. It goes to the
No.
voter.
Yeah.
Funding
Well-
goes to the voters. The select board's not gonna
Sure.
pay for it. If we decide we want that $10 million library, select board isn't paying for it. They're gonna put that article forward and the town's gonna vote for it and say no or yes or whatever it is. Select board's not gonna do that. And you can't bind one select board to a future select board by saying, you have an election next year and you have 2 new select board members and the whole balance of the board changes. So worrying about what the select board is gonna do is overly thoughtful, I think, and gives them way too much power in in that role. We're here to collect the community's thoughts, put it on paper, and then steer the select board in this vision. And if they don't go along with it for whatever power they have is their purview, and you vote them out the next cycle. you know, and that's the process. But to gear our vision towards what this current board is willing to fund or send article forwards for funding, defeats the purpose, I think.
We're not going to be doing bricks and mortar.
No.
Dreams.
No, but we're talking about stuff like, you know, bike paths down every road in town, right? You know, sidewalks here, you know, on these roads, things of that nature that, you know,
I presume the
infrastructure.
will be
Yeah,
relaying
it
some
seems
of
like
this
my
back and
role would
forth.
be to inform the select board after each of our meetings. So it's not something that haven't heard before. It's unexplained.
Well, in the transportation section, you're gonna be dealing with class 6 roads, class 5 roads, and then you have what has to be funded and what has to be made town. Because when a class 6 road becomes town's responsibility versus not, you know, all those things are driven by the master plan. And where you set the criteria, how many residences on a class 6 road that's currently private are necessary to make it a consideration for the town to accept the responsibility for that road. Taxpayer.
That goes into planning.
That is a question that has to come out of this framework. And we don't make the decision, because obviously that's going to be made someplace else, either the planning board and then ultimately the select board and the town vote. But we're the ones that are going to be setting the parameters for that decision process.
Class 6 roads has been pretty.
And, yeah, Steve Diamond is on one of our boards, and we've communicated a bit about the folks that are cut off from, or potentially cut off. How do you get ensure the emergency services to get people on you know, fairly inaccessible roads that have one little tiny bridge and that sort of thing. Yeah, so if was the original question, how do we make sure that this whole process isn't done in a vacuum and then immediately gets shot down once we're done? That's kind of the ultimate worst case scenario, right? It sounds like we have sort of iterative communication back and forth with the planning, but if we go ahead, did I get that on a right? I think.
So since we don't have an implementation committee,
Right.
and that will be planning board, zoning board, select board. Then it's what we give that go through the implementation process. I would say missing in some of the strategic plan documentation we see here when we talk. What are the alternative approaches to meet that? And what are the approaches? That as an outcome, this process, their process, and give them additional input to say, yeah, we kind of agree with that one. Oh, no, we like that option. I think it's up to us to give the option, not just, hey, we want to settle the planet on Mars.
I just have something quick to add to that may or may not answer some questions too. The planning board is also a part of the capital improvement program. So these are things that actually will be built. So that I can see that as an avenue for things that we address in these documents, the things that maybe need to be built to help neighborhoods or, you know, sidewalks, etc. We do that every year, and that document goes for the select board, whether or not, once again, they choose to fund that or not. That helps because kind of works function more like we actually talked about it tonight, so I don't want to get ahead of it, but in practice, it has been the town planner who puts together the capital improvement program and meets with all the department heads, including projects for like in our department or the fire department or the highway department. Talk more about sidewalks or that sort of thing. That's more of our implementation process too. So this is where I could gather information as well to put forth the CAP. It's in a year out, but every year they do it to see like what the needs are of the community. And then I feel like we have a strong document for bricks and mortar type things to get established. You could see like, hey, there really is a need for 3 get a bigger library. We still want to look at the library, or we want to look at more bike paths and safer access for our neighbors. This is something too that would help through this process, help us out. I don't know if that answers or helps, at least,
I did bring it.
I mean, kind of help a little bit, brings it in as far as like, well, where we go from here. This helps. It's a grand scheme of things. Yes, it's our master plan for Barrington for our transportation chapter and future land use, but then we can take that information that it's been updated, like this is what we're, I hate to say lacking, but some that the community sees as a need, that they would take, that use that as part of a CIP process and put it select board and then discuss.
And I'd like to add, I mean, I
If
think,
that helps.
I think this is, you know, this is a 100,000 view document. This isn't a ground level working document, because there's other tools in the arsenal that come downriver of it. If we say we need sidewalks on every road in Barrington, that comes out of this document, you know, then we go to, then the planning, and from being on the planning board for several years, we look at stuff and then we say, we're gonna change zoning that says if you put in this X, Y, and Z development, you have to put in sidewalks. Like we did at the Christmas stub, and we've done in a couple other developments. Now we need plows and trucks to take care of the sidewalks. There's a whole litany of problems. But this is the guiding documents that made the planning board put that in the zoning change. And then you, me, and everyone else get to vote on that and whether it gets implemented. Whether, you know, and we've seen changes in this last election cycle that were good changes for the town that people didn't vote for. And I say good changes, that's my opinion. But you know, but a lot of them were good, could have been good changes for the town, and people didn't vote for them. So to get, you know, so being involved from the planning board aspect, I see the other things, you know, this is the document that myself and other planning board members said, everybody spoke, we're supposed to listen. We're one of 5 people, one of 7 people. We have our vote on the planning board, but let's put the zoning amendment forward and let the town decide. And then it goes to vote and it gets shot down and we bring it up the next year, or we drop it because it was, you know, interest was one way or another. So I think that's the whole process in a nutshell, and to try to, you know, focus on funding up front as opposed to the rest of the process to get the ideas accomplished.
So just to address specific on zoning of the last election, there was so much controversy about that and so many questions. I really think the planning board needs to do a better job of explaining it, because so many people thought.
They glazed over, their eyes glazed.
Yeah,
over.
I agree. And I argued that one for quite a while, that, you know, it needs to be a longer description, and there's, you know, constraints and stuff on that. And then you wouldn't believe the people that came into the town office looking for answers, and I don't even know if they walked away with the answer they wanted, but yeah, I agree. It's confusing language sometimes, and it needs to be. Pardon me? Yeah.
Has there ever been a survey to ask the residents of Barrington, what do you want?
Oh, yeah, this one. All this stuff
Okay,
is
so
done.
all of, that's already
2017.
been done and the answers are in here.
Yes, 2017, there was a share it. We had what they're talking about with the maps and the things. We had
Okay.
surveys go out, everything.
Okay.
These documents are
So
all
they
drawn.
told us this is what they want. and now
Exactly.
We need
Yep,
to take
walkable
that.
communities, you know, that's why
Show them.
you've got the massive, you know, townhouses going across the middle school. That's why you've got the massive development going behind the Irving. That's why we got the big development going behind Christmas stuff. Because people said they wanted congestion and walkability in the downtown Barrington area. So we changed zoning to allow for the higher density in that area, because that's what people asked for. The Caliph Center is the downtown of
Oh,
Barrington.
okay.
That's- The intention is to be built
Okay,
out.
that's going to.
That's one of the problems we have.
Yeah.
The town center concept originated, and it's a good one. But now, it's not,
Yeah.
it's really not workable with today's configuration. So we have to address that as part of this group here, say, do we need to redefine it and find how people, do they really want to get to a town center?
My opinion on the matter is we need to find a town that we like and then copy what's done. Because from 5 years on the planning board, I see doing it, making up as we go along. I think this will work. The trial and error method doesn't work. You know, I don't like some of the stuff that's happened. That's why after the one behind the Irving, we changed that zoning to try to stop something like that from going the next piece over, because nobody wants the 80, well, some people do, but, I speak from my own perspective. Few people were happy with the 80 unit, complex going in behind Irving. So we changed that stuff as we see and get feedback. And I speak from the planning board perspective. So
Could we have a commission, like a professional?
these are our professionals.
Okay.
Today, not back.
No, but I
No.
guess what I'm saying is you're talking about, give them some options of our town could look like A, B, C, or D, okay? So are you the organization that could give us 3 or 4 different options of how Barrington downtown would look? Then we
The,
present.
the short answer is yes. I've done this before, with more urbanized areas, but like we can say, what streetscapes look good to you? What
Yeah.
design styles look good to you?
Give you
you know,
some criteria.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because it's hard. It's very, very, my degree is in landscape architecture, so I'm very familiar with looking at a 2-dimensional plan and actually knowing what it's probably going to look like 3-dimensionally once it's built. A lot of people have a very difficult time to do it. Even more difficult time to do it when it's zoning, when you're taking text and trying to translate that into a 3-dimensional
Right.
world.
Well, that's
That's
why
very,
if you
very,
give someone
right, exactly.
visual and different options to
Yep.
understand these are the different things that may speak to people better to say, oh, yeah, that's what I want. I'll vote for that.
One of the things to do is what you had suggested a moment ago, and this is usually one of the first things that I'll ask a community when I come to work with them is, who do you compare yourself to, right? Like if I come in from an outsider, do I say, well, Durham just did this thing, and then people are like, whoa, 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 we're not Durham, or, oh, okay, great, yeah, that's good, that would be awesome, right? That would be.
I'm sorry, in the grand scheme of things, this is great collaboration, a great meeting, and I hate to cut it short. However, I do have a planning committee. So in interest of time, if we could move to trying to fit another, not fit, but find another time that may work for everyone in the committee or the majority of the committee. And these are great takeaways, maybe some homework will.
Yes, if you
Read
give
all
us
our
that,
stuff.
that's what I'm hoping.
Yeah, a different, maybe, and think about places that
Go
you
home.
like and you
Go.
maybe want to see what there could be a little bit more like. Or maybe you could say things what you love about Barrington that's different from other places or.
Okay.
And talk to your neighbors, right?
Spark some interest to let them know that this is happening.
Yep. But also, we do have to figure out, what's a good meeting, date for the next time that this group gets together. Right, this will be like our first real working session. This was the kickoff, this was the introduction, this was, just, a quick one, but, we had identified 2 different weeks, correct?
Right, so trying to juggle the schedules, we are trying to keep it within the timeframes of working hours. If that, is a huge issue for folks, let us know. We're looking at doing, Mondays. I think that's what we came up with, a different date.
Is it Thursdays?
But Thursday is like our alternate date.
Right.
So in the interest of, there was, have Jamie be here as part of our staff. And it also has an insight from being a planning board member. The Mondays, so that's why we're hoping that Mondays will work. If not, that's totally fine, because not everybody can, not everybody can make every meeting all the time. And we want to be as flexible and transparent as works best for everybody.
What were the 2 weeks that we had identified? My laptop is.
Meeting up.
It's okay.
Yeah.
The week of August 5th,
So nothing next month?
It was either, I think, July 25th
yep,
or
Or-
August.
August 18th.
The 25th is after the.
So July 25th is the select board
Or
meeting,
Mondays, sorry,
strategic planning.
I'm sorry,
Okay. I think I need to update my calendar because I had a different day.
What did you say, July 25th is the?
Select board strategic planning.
The hours we were thinking, and I'll have to relay it back to how much time that you're looking for. Our head was thinking about 2 to 3 hours, depending on the subject matter, at least for the first few meetings. Probably from starting at 1 in the afternoon until finish, whatever that may be, like 3 or 4 in the afternoon.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, I apologize, Joyce, about the select board. I had it on.
What did you have it for?
I had it for the week prior, so maybe it changed. And
I think internal calendar. It changed.
So 1 to 3, now the 25th is out, doing another different.
Yeah, it was the 15th of August.
There's no other date in July?
I think we're going back with scheduling, and I can live that on our end. The town staff is moving at the end of July, so there's going to be limbo of perhaps meeting space or that sort of thing. And I know that SRPC has to get their materials ready also for us to do a proper workshop.
Okay.
If there's an earlier date we want to look at, we can, but I don't know if they'll give us ample time.
Yeah, the first week was July 4th week, so people, it's a natural vacation week. I think there was a combination of work and personal conflicts, because this is, vacation season. And so the 25th and the 15th were the two that we started with.
So August 15th.
Well, I mean, that's the next one we're putting out in front of the group, because the 25th apparently does not, is in conflict. So does that work for people here, or?
Well, I had the schedule backwards, so the select board can the 15th of August. Correct me if I'm wrong, they're not meeting that day then? I have it on mine that they are.
But if it was 1 to 4, Joyce, would, not.
The select board meeting starts at 6:30.
Right.
So, yeah, as long as it's not in the evening.
Right, it'd be 1 to 4.
Yeah, okay.
We
Yeah.
can do them the same day as the select board, as long as it's.
Yeah, as long as it's in the
We
afternoon.
were thinking like 1 to 3 to 4.
Yeah, that works.
So
On the 25th.
are we back to looking at?
Do 2 to like 5?
All over the place.
What's that?
We do 2 to 5 instead of.
That works for everybody?
On the 25th?
Yeah. Monday?
So there's a motion on the floor, 2 to 5 on the 25th. Is that what I'm hearing? Yeah, right?
2 to 5.
The meeting.
I thought it was 1 to 3.
Should we just change?
Oh, that's why I was,
Okay.
I was joking
Five.
with the motion, but I was just saying, like, that's what it sounds like.
25th. Correct.
All right.
And now what work want from us?
Well, as we had said, we, the first thing is to really think about how we're going to reach people, right? We don't want decisions to be made or the input to be just this group. So how do we reach people? That's the key thing, whether it's the survey or getting people excited about doing the workshop, right? So those are two things to think about. Beyond that, I think considering what are the communities that you want to see. This is land use and transportation, right? So how do you want to use your land? Over here, we want residential. Over here, we want commercial. With transportation. Over here, we want to calm it down. Over here, we want to speed it up. We want, what they call multimodal, like pedestrian and biking. So I think just thinking broad-based about those couple of elements, we can doodle together and maybe send you a few things, like teasers, right? Something, say, here's some questions to consider. We could send you a few items, in the next week or so, consider.
Do you think should be part of it? Like I said, also a menu of options for outreach. I also have some tools thinking about that 3D look of what a streetscape might look like, those sorts of things.
Because we're going to get to all of this. Right now, we just know that when you do these things, getting the public involved is very difficult. It takes multiple touches, right? You know, marketing professionals will tell you it takes 7 touches before someone makes a decision. So we have to get people touched a lot of different ways, get them involved, to take the online survey or to participate in the program. So that's why it's so many months out. So we can develop that sort of outreach marketing plan. But all the visioning ideas, we're absolutely going to get to that. So that's why we haven't put as much emphasis on that just yet. But we will. Good.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Good to meet you all.
Meet you too.
There's,